This week on Adventist News Network, a young Adventist carries the Olympic torch.
A link between family meals and lowering at-risk behaviors in young adults.
And the surprising influence of Christians on Twitter.
These stories and more coming up.
This is Adventist News Network, a service of the Seventh-day Adventist World Church. Thanks so much for joining us this week.
First in the news, the Oakwood Adventist University Choir takes home gold at the World Choir Games. The Aeolians collected prizes in 3 vocal categories, including the top gold medal in the category of spiritual music. The biennial World Choir Games took place this year in the U.S. state of Cincinnati, Ohio, and featured more than 300 choirs competing in multiple categories. This marks the first international choir competition for the group, and they hope to repeat their success at the next World Choir Games, scheduled for 2014 in Riga, Latvia.
A Marathon Music Ministry evangelistic tour spanning the vast country of Brazil ended recently on a positive note. The initiative, called Reencontro Imperdível, aims to reach former Seventh-day Adventist church members who no longer attend church regularly. This series of concerts were attended by nearly 40,000 people and resulted in thousands of people choosing to reconnect with their church. Larissa Preuss reports from Brazil.
They have sung these songs at least 30 times all over Brazil before coming to meet these people. On the 31st edition of a project that aims to bring back those who are away from church, 4,000 people came together to find God through worship and praise. For many of them, it was a reunion.
O meu ideal é trazer tantas pessoas quanto seja possível para os braços de Jesus. De preferência, aquelas que já andaram nos caminhos do Senhor e se afastaram.
The music is only the starting point. The link that unites people and breaks away all barriers is created in the experience of simply singing together.
Cantamos para as pessoas, mas nós cantamos diante de Deus, nós cantamos para Deus. Por isso foi muito bom participar, ver tudo isso acontecendo. Trouxe uma alegria muito grande ao meu coração e ver essa igreja e esse momento cheio de jovens entregando e se encontrando com Cristo. Isso foi muito bom para mim.
Reunion means return and also turning around.
É difícil porque a gente às vezes toma essas decisões muitas vezes e a gente não consegue levar, não consegue continuar, não consegue ter firmeza. Mas eu espero que dessa vez Deus me ajude, todas as pessoas que estão aqui orem, porque eu vou conseguir.
Eu peço a Deus que eles sintam que eles são importantes, que a gente não pode viver sem eles, que a família está incompleta sem eles. Como é que a gente vai para o céu sem eles?
And every time the sun returns, there is a feast in the Father's house.
A gente fica muito feliz. E a esperança que eu tenho é que um dia elas vêm, né? Elas voltam para a igreja de novo.
Quando a gente chegou, eu estava com um sentimento vazio. Agora eu estou bem repleta mesmo. O coração está apertado, pedindo a Deus para preparar. Sabe, não para levantar e vir aqui na frente e ficar meio lá, meio cá, mas para mim ficar.
From Brazil, I am Larissa Preuss for Adventist News Network.
A young Adventist man from Nottingham, England, carried the Olympic torch during the Games relay event held earlier this month. Leon Squire is a young athlete who recently turned down an opportunity to play professional soccer due to Sabbath conflicts. Squire said he was honored to participate in the relay and represent his church and school. The 2012 Olympics opened in London on the 27th of July. For more about what Adventists are doing during the Olympics, visit news.adventist.org.
A recent story in the New York Times newspaper said Christians are having an unexpected impact on the microblogging site Twitter. The article referred to top Christian Twitter users like Joyce Meyer and Max Lucado. Both have a relatively low number of followers compared to many celebrities, but high levels of follower interaction. Analysis found inspirational tweets were shared at higher rates than tweets from pop stars or Hollywood actors.
Prior to coming to ADRA, I was vice president at a digital marketing and public relations firm in Chicago. And we would set strategies on social media for our various clients. And we discovered that our messages or our tweets tend to get retweeted when they are of a more positive tone. And because Christian leaders who are on social media, and particularly Twitter, tend to send messages out that are uplifting and more positive and encouraging, I truly believe that that's the reason why their retweet rates are much higher than the average person's.
There is a garden in every childhood, an enchanted place where colors are brighter, the air softer, and the morning more fragrant than ever.
Of all life's seasons, childhood is the most beautiful.
Children are the living messages we send to a time we will not see.
Blessed indeed is the man who hears many gentle voices call him Father.
A child can ask 1,000 questions that the wisest man cannot answer.
When I approach a child, I have two thoughts: affection for what he is today and respect for what he can become.
There are no 7 wonders of the world in the eyes of a child. There are 7 million.
Children are 1/3 of our population and all of our future.
He called a little child to him and placed the child among them. And he said, "Truly, I tell you, unless you change and become like little children, you will never enter the kingdom of heaven. Therefore, whoever takes the lowly position of this child is the greatest in the kingdom of heaven. And whoever welcomes one such child in my name welcomes me."
Welcome back. Here's Kimberly Moran with a preview of this week's issue of Adventist Review.
Here are a few highlights from the July 19 Adventist Review magazine. The cover story is about a prophetic topic many of us shy away from. Do you know who the beast in Revelation is? How important is this to church members and the world in the last days of Earth's history? Pastor Shane Anderson bravely addresses the topic and shows how important prophecy is and how it connects us to Jesus in deep ways. This article is one for reading and sharing. Another article that bears mention is Gerald Klingbeil's editorial titled Carpe Diem Unplugged, which is based on letters and comments he received after a March 22 editorial titled Carpe Diem. The responses Gerald included in this latest editorial are good conversation starters. How can you seize the day? The last article I'd like to direct you to is God as the Audience by Abner L. Perales. It is a biblical study that takes on Danish philosopher and theologian Soren Kierkegaard and the notion that God, in regard to our worship of Him, is passive. That's all I have time to talk to you about, but trust me, this is an issue you don't want to miss. Find these and other articles at www.adventistreview.org.
A reluctant intern learns only the Adventist Church can help him graduate in this month's Mission Quarterly. Charlotte Ishkanian has more.
There's nothing like a good story that has the power to excite and inspire. Roman needed to complete an internship in order to graduate from university in Madagascar, but the only institution that offered him an internship was the Adventist University. Roman wasn't sure about Adventists, but with no other alternative, he accepted the internship. God used that internship to change Roman's life and the lives of several others, including a very strict professor. Kapitango lives in northern Namibia. He didn't like Adventists, but when a family friend asked him to translate for a young couple who had come to work among the Himba, how could he say no? Find out what God had planned for Kapitango and the Himba. Read Letting the Himba Hear in this quarter's mission report. What does a missionary do when he arrives in a new area planning to start a school, but he doesn't know the language? He learns the language first and then starts the school, right? Read The Sudden School and see what W.H. Anderson did when he arrived in Zambia a century ago and found students waiting to learn right now. Find all these stories and more in the Mission Quarterlies or online at www.adventistmission.org. Click on Resources and Mission Quarterly and sit back and enjoy some exciting, true adventures.
This week, our Facebook and Twitter followers are the ones asking the questions. ANN News editor Ansel Oliver is here to talk about his job for this week's Adventist social media segment.
This week in social media, we have a special guest with us today. ANN News editor Ansel Oliver is here to take your questions from Twitter. Welcome, Ansel.
Thank you.
Our first question comes from And Yet, and she asks, which media sources do you follow to stay on top of the news?
I read the Washington Post and the Wall Street Journal. Both of those offer a lot of international coverage. On Twitter and Facebook, I also follow the New York Times and Chicago Tribune and the Christianity Today magazine.
We have another question from Rico JB, who asks, from what region of the world are you most surprised to receive news?
One time we did receive some news from St. Helena, which is a very isolated island in the South Atlantic Ocean, and the youth director wrote us to say that the division youth leader had come to visit, and that really doesn't happen there much. We didn't know that, so we told him, well, thanks, but we're not really interested in the story. But he kept insisting, saying, no, you don't understand. No one hardly ever comes to visit us. So we looked into it, and we found out it is a 4 or 5 day boat ride just to get there. And it was very honoring for the church members there and for the youth, so we determined it was something unique and special. And we ran that story, I think, in July of 2007.
Great, thanks for sharing, and thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Join us next week when we take a look at the social network Instagram.
For our book review this week, Samuel Thomas Jr. takes a look at a collection of incredible stories almost too amazing to believe.
You've heard testimonies of how God helped a person survive a car accident or some other dangerous situation. A listener with a cynical bent might roll their eyes and say, that's not a miracle. That's just a coincidence. For them, God's way of working is too subtle. His desire to stay in the background does not satisfy their desire for thunder and magic. But every once in a while, God does show his hand. In the book Unbelievable from Review and Herald Publishing, you read about a mission worker who loses his pay envelope while paddling his canoe between islands in the wide Pacific Ocean. What happens next? Definitely a miracle. In another chapter, you read about a stranger with a shining face who arrives in a remote Asian village with a gift that alerts the people to the Adventist message, then leaves, never to be seen again. Lauren Wade's new book has brought together 25 stories of God showing up in a dramatic way. A doubter who reads these chapters has two choices. Either they must deny the evidence before them and say with a shake of the head, unbelievable. Or they must acknowledge what an awesome God we serve and say in a spirit of wonder and joy, unbelievable.
Unbelievable, It's a God Thing by Lauren T. Wade is available online at AdventistBookCenter.com.
Still ahead on Adventist News Network, cake and the Great Controversy go hand in hand.
But up next, this week's Tech Corner.
When reading through The Great Hope, I found a phrase that has given me courage and hope. I'd like to share that. God's love for His children during the period of their severest trial is as strong and tender as in the days of their sunniest prosperity. But it's needed for them to be placed in the furnace of fire. Their earthliness must be consumed, that the image of Christ may be perfectly reflected. This gives me hope because I see that God's love never falters. And even though I may find myself in situations that I've brought on myself, God is there to see me through. When I look back, I see how He's led me in trials, and I see how I have been strengthened by going through them. God loves me and He sees something special, and that gives me hope.
Welcome back. This week on Tech Corner, an easy way to embed PDFs on your web page.
A lot of people make beautifully printed newsletters and magazines. Most of the time, it's not practical to reformat these for the web. One easy way to make these available online is to print them as a PDF, then post them on the site. What many website managers may not know is that it's simple to make these PDFs viewable right on the web page. This makes it very easy for website visitors to read your material. Here's how to do it. To start with, it's best to save your document in PDF format. If you're on a PC, I personally like the BullZip PDF printer available from bullzip.com. Once the printer software is installed, print to the PDF printer to make a PDF file. Next, upload your PDF to a service that provides an online PDF viewer. This is very similar to uploading a video to YouTube. For this, I suggest looking at Scribd.com and Issuu.com. I really like Issuu's page-flipping magazine-style viewer, but their free service includes an advertising sidebar. Scribd's free service, while perhaps not as pretty, performs well and doesn't have ads. Once your PDF is uploaded, look for the option to copy the embed code. Copy and paste this code into the HTML source of a web page. Now your site will nicely display the PDF newsletter or magazine instead of just offering a download link. As an added bonus, your newsletter or magazine is now able to be found to visitors to the Issuu or Scribd website.
You've heard the family who prays together stays together, but what about sharing a meal? Linda Ko talks about the latest findings.
Research has shown us recently that eating together as a family really yields many positive results. It helps lower at-risk behaviors such as alcohol and drug use, and also raise happier and healthier children. Spiritual values especially, are transferred, and a faith develops, and family identity is strengthened when families spend time eating together and talking and building relationships. In Deuteronomy chapter 6 verses 4 to 9, God told Moses to ensure that families intentionally spend their time such as sitting down, standing up, when they lie down, when they walk, to transfer and pass the faith over to their children. Recently, the Children's Ministry Department of South Pacific region of our headquarters over there developed a very interesting resource for that called Table Talks. Now, the Table Talks is a little box with very interesting cards in there. They are conversation starters, and families can pick a card up and help them ask questions so that children and parents can talk about it. And they are for building values such as grace, worship, service, and community. So we want to encourage our parents to start spending time with family talks because it helps to build good relationships.
A housewarming gift creates a long-term friendship. Wilmar Hurley tells how sharing a cake led to sharing the book, The Great Controversy.
When my wife and me, we were moving to America to a new house. When we're just moving to that house, we see our next neighbor, a old lady, pushing her husband in a wheelchair. And they were just coming to visit us. They were bringing a nice cake, a delicious cake that we ate together. After that, we become very, very close friends. And every year before Christmas, we used to visit them and bring it to them some nice books like Step to Christ, Desire of Age, and many other different books. Last year, they sold the house and they just moved to a nursing home, and they are there at this moment. Last year before Christmas, we decided to visit them, and we decided to give them the book Great Controversy. When we give this kind of books to friends, it's something amazing, because those books that speak about Jesus can bring those people, those friends, to heaven. And if by the grace of God we will be there, we'll have those friends with us forever.
When we come back after the break, David Trim talks about the origins of the International Religious Liberty Association.
I don't remember any moments that my parents hugged me or held my hands, or I never heard that they say, "Liana, I love you." I was struggling with a severe depression.
I strongly believe that this project, Great Controversy Project, is God-sent initiative. This is what we need as a church. I would like to encourage every one of us to be part of this project. It will be a great blessing, and that will hasten the coming of Jesus Christ.
Now let's hear from our newest iShare host, Lauren Lombard, for the news you reported this week.
Welcome to iShare, where you bring us the news. Today we have a video from the Michigan Conference where teens are raising money to prevent sex trafficking in India.
What makes me any better than them?
Grown-ups don't think people my age can make a difference.
We want to show them that it's not true. We raised over $1,000 to help these kids.
$1,000. To help end this.
I want to help inspire others in my age group.
I want to show them that they can make a difference. I want to show people I can make a difference.
I can do something.
We can make a difference.
Thanks for watching iShare. Don't forget to send us your news and videos at news.adventist.org/iShare.
This week, Lisa Beardsley Hardy shares the story of a medical school professor who became interested in the Adventist Church after watching the behavior of her students.
Dr. Hudson Chibuka and I recently returned from the Philippines, where we had a very interesting visit. We were able to see construction of a new proposed medical school and meet somebody very interesting. This all happened at the Adventist University of the Philippines. You were able to meet Dr. Mendoza. We both met her. She has an interesting story, a pediatric cardiologist who was impressed by her students. What impressed her?
Right. What impressed her is the faithfulness of her students. She was teaching in a public university, and these students, Seventh Adventist students, were very faithful that they could not take exams on the Sabbath. And eventually she got so convicted and began to find out what is it that keeps these students, makes them so committed to the faith that they have. She now is going to be the head of the medical school at the Adventist University of the Philippines after going through a lot of changes in her life.
This is a case where students were a witness to a teacher and led her to a deeper examination of what the Bible teaches about the Sabbath. Right. After I left to go back, you went on to Indonesia. What was happening in Indonesia?
Well, what was happening in Indonesia, we had a meeting where all college and university presidents from all over Asia, Southern Asia Pacific Division, came to meet and plan for the future. We met in the city of Bali in Indonesia. But Indonesia is an interesting country. It spans 3 time zones. And we are privileged to have 3 colleges and universities there, and several academies and high schools.
And you're wearing an Indonesian shirt. Thank you for the greetings from the Southern Asia Pacific Division, Dr. Chibuka.
Now let's turn to David Trim for a look at Adventist history. This week, the first Adventist Youth Congress is held in Germany, and the Pacific Press loses its stock of books to a fire.
Welcome to This Week in Adventist History. On July 15, in 1902, the Review and Herald published an article by Ellen White in which she urged Adventists there is need not merely of a revival, but of a reformation. On July 16 in 1915, Ellen White died at the age of 87. Her last words were, "I know in whom I have believed." Funeral services were held at Elmshaven and later at Battle Creek, where she was buried in the Oak Hill Cemetery alongside her husband, James White. She had lived to see the great Second Advent movement grow from a handful of believers to a worldwide congregation with a membership on her death of 136,879. From the 17th through the 22nd of July in 1928, the first Seventh-day Adventist Youth Congress was held in Chemnitz, Germany. It drew 1,837 delegates and around another 1,300 visitors from 16 countries across Europe. On July 18 in 1868, John N. Loughborough and Daniel T. Bordeaux arrived in San Francisco, where they established the first Seventh-day Adventist work on the west coast of North America. On July 21, 1906, in Mountain View, California, a fire destroyed Pacific Press's main building, including the printing plant and the whole book stock. 17 years earlier, on July 21, 1889, the National Religious Liberty Association was founded at a meeting in the Battle Creek Tabernacle with 110 charter members, the ancestor of today's International Religious Liberty Association. That was This Week in Adventist History.
Thanks for watching Adventist News Network. Join us next week for more news from the headquarters of the Seventh-day Adventist Church.
And if you haven't already, check out our new ANN video podcast. It's the same show you're watching now, but in a format compatible with your iPod or other portable media players. You can subscribe by searching for Adventist News Network video podcast in iTunes.
Our good news for this week comes from Proverbs 3, 1-3. My son, do not forget my teaching, but keep my commands in your heart, for they will prolong your life many years and bring you peace and prosperity. Let love and faithfulness never leave you. Bind them around your neck. Write them on the tablet of your heart.
That's our show for this week. Don't forget, you can always visit news.adventist.org for daily news and videos. Until next time, God bless.